and change from speaker view to
Gallery view.
gallery view, and then you'll see everybody
Hey, Jill.
larger.
Thank you.
What?
There you are. Now I can see everybody.
There's Jill. Hey,
Hey,
Liz.
Liz.
Sibylla.
Hi, Sibylla.
Hello, Sibylla.
Good morning, afternoon.
There she is.
Hey,
Janice.
Hey.
what happened to Helen? I don't see her anymore.
Oh, I can.
I just see a picture of myself. Am I moving on your screen?
No,
No.
just a picture of you.
You have gallery view, Liz?
I have speaker view.
Go to gallery view.
No, you need to turn your video on if you want to see yourself.
Oh, because it's been more. Oh, okay. Here we go. I've been zooming everything else. I
Nice
thought,
picture though, Liz.
okay, there we go.
Nice picture.
Yeah, that was about 10 years ago. I looked a little younger. That was weird.
You
Backdrop.
should be able to, you know, put that in the archive and use it when you want it. The old one, the old picture.
It's like, oh, but it's the people in their 90s and they have a 20-year-old picture when they're 20 or something. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
how
You
I
definitely
want it.
have your sound on.
Okay. Welcome,
There are also
everyone.
2 more pages.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. Let's see how many people. We have 53 people. Hi, Garth Johnson.
Wow.
So that's great. And I want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming and joining us today for our third Lunch and Learn with our founders, the founders of the Clay Studio. And I want to thank Jill, Kathy, Janice, and Ken for being with us today and agreeing to spend some time reminiscing. We also, of course, need to mention Betty Parasano, the 5th founder who passed away in 2018. Today, our Lunch and Learn conversation is kicking off what we're calling the Legacy Project for the Clay Studio, which is going to, over the next year, include oral histories with all of the founders, so more in-depth oral histories with each of you, and then anyone else who has been an important member of the Clay Studio community over the last 46 years, and we have a list
Artie's here.
ready. So some of you out there, I think, in many of the faces I see are going to be tapped to have some involvement in that. Marianne Tebbins actually, and Jen Martin started talking about that a few years ago, so I think she'll be involved as well. We are going to have that first phase of research and oral history. It also include cataloging our collections, our collection and our archive, which is full of wonderful old photographs and slides and show cards and things like that, but we need to get them into shape to digitize them so they can be available for scholars and for all of us to look at now and into the future. We're gonna culminate that first year in the last exhibition in our current building, because I'm sure all of you know that we are about to be in the physical process of building our new building. We are definitely in the process of that project. And if anyone has questions about that, I bet Jen Martin would be happy to answer them at the end of this call. We are gonna have a really exciting exhibition at the end. Oh, I'm just gonna ask everyone to mute yourself, and except for the founders, because I'm getting a little feedback. I can hear myself talking in somebody else's speaker. Thank you. And just as an aside for the muting situation, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. We can look at them as we're going through the talk today, and then definitely at the end, I'll look through them. And if you have a question, I'm happy for you to unmute and chat. It's just that feedback thing that happens during the process.
So he's a good plumber, but he's not so good at coming up with the best idea.
I know.
Oh,
I noticed.
see, I can
Every time that we've
No,
ever
I'm
worked
gonna
with
mute
him,
everybody.
it was
Hold on
my
one
idea and his
second.
execution.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
I
totally forgot
can
about that.
mute all. Okay,
And he likes to
great. And then that's taken care of. And I'll just unmute Jill, Janice, Kathy, and Ken. Okay, sorry about that. So getting back to the last exhibition in the current building, that's going to be really exciting. We're going to have those oral histories present for people to listen to. We're also going to have a recording booth for anyone who didn't have their oral history taken and feels like they have a really exciting clay studio story to tell. We'll have a chance to record at that time. And of course, there will be wonderful examples of everyone's art in that exhibition. Of course, if you think about 1974, what happens in 2024, we're getting ready for our 50th anniversary already. So all of this research is going to also feed into a major exhibition and a publication celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Clay Studio. And one step beyond that is my dream exhibition citywide representing the Philadelphia craft renaissance from 1965 to now. So that's in my dream grant writing world at the moment. Let me know if anyone has any leads on that. So one more special thanks, Dominique Ellis, retail manager and gallery coordinator, a year or two ago put together a great show from the archives, and I'm going to show you some stuff, great images she found in our archive that's on our website. And then Naima Stith, who's our retail and gallery coordinator, spent a bunch of time over the last week populating the exhibition page for Creative Collective, which was an exhibition last year where some of the founders and others had really great work. So we can also look at that really quickly. And Janice sent me some great photographs this morning, and we can look at those too. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our 4 founders in alphabetical order, in case you're wondering why they're in this order. Jill Bonovitz has her BA from Columbia University and did post-grad work at Moore College of Art. She has participated in many group shows and had numerous solo exhibitions, including one this past fall at Moore, where she was honored as a visionary woman. She served on several boards at cultural institutions in Philadelphia, including the Fabric Workshop, where she's still on the board. Her work is in public and private collections, including the Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, and the Museum of Arts and Design in New York, as well as the Hermitage Museum in Russia, where she is included in a collection that was organized by Helen Drepp, who we think may be with us in the guest list today. Kathy Dalzell has her BA from the University of Pennsylvania, did post-grad work at Moore College of Art and the Philadelphia College of Art, which is now UArts. She taught at the Mainline Art Center for many years, while also running summer workshops in Cape Cod. Her work has been shown in many exhibitions, including that one I mentioned last year, Creative Collective, that was shown at the American Craft Council offices last year during the NCCA in Minneapolis. Janice Marandino has a dual BFA from Moore College of Art in Ceramics and Art Education. For the last 20 years, she's taught in the accessible art programs at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, which provides classes for veterans and people with physical disabilities. In 1998, she founded the Branch Out Project to teach people to use drawing skills to connect with enhanced visual thinking skills in order to develop more innovative approaches to problem solving. Her work is in private and public collections, including at the State Museum of Pennsylvania. And Ken Babrick has his BFA and MFA from Ohio University. He was a professor of art at Moore College of Art from 1970 to 2003. Ken has had awards from the National Endowment for the Arts and the PA Council on the Arts. He has numerous solo exhibitions, participated in many group shows. His work is represented in national and international museum collections, including the Philadelphia Museum, Cleveland Museum of Art, and the Milwaukee Museum of Art. And Betty Parasano, who unfortunately passed away in 2018, graduated from St. Joe's University and attended Moore College of Art. She managed civic affairs for Cigna Foundation and took great pride in being one of the co-founders of the Clay Studio. So I just wanted to mention her as well. So I just talked for 10 straight minutes. I'd love to let somebody else talk. So I want to throw out to our 4 founders for someone to get started talking about how you remember the idea of the Clay Studio getting started. What was the first conversation that you remember having maybe about what would become the Clay Studio?
I guess I'll start on that one because it happened in a kind of a gradual way. Janice and Shirley Johnson came to me. They told me they were looking for a studio I said, I can really understand that. It made sense to me, and I had been worrying for a few years about the fact that there wasn't some facility when they graduated for students to go and work in clay. Then Jill and Betty and Kathy came to me and said, we're looking for a space. And I go, wow, I didn't put two to two together at that point, but it was when my life was going through a change, and I was separating from my wife, and I needed a studio that I got to brainstorm. I said, oh, let's get those two groups together, and I'll join them. And we started looking together. And I would say that when we went out with the realtor for the first time and found the building that we went into, that's when we started moving towards something that was like the clay studio, because we found this big building that required a lot more ceramics, and we decided to do that, look for more ceramics. And so that's, I think maybe other people could add to that.
Thanks, Ken. That's a great way to start it off.
I think one of the thoughts I had, I remember standing around in Moore in the hallway, and I don't remember who was talking to, but just you look at this bulletin board of all these opportunities that were out there, and I'm thinking, what's going to happen when we leave? There are no more classes to take. I didn't know, and we lived in the city, and we weren't going to go out in the country and do the hippie powder thing. And so how can you do this in the city, and how can we have the exact same possibilities and the equipment, and could we recreate a college experience but in the city? I think that was what, so we wanted to be, that was one of the things that was motivating me.
Yeah, I was thrilled because I was just graduating, and I was really up in the air about, I wanted to continue in clay, but I had no idea how to get started and how to find anything on my own that I could afford. And the idea of going in with several people seemed like it made sense at that time. But then when we found this building that was way too big for just the 5 of us to carry, I think the most exciting part for me was to realize that we lived in a city that had a lot of other art colleges, a lot of other ceramic artists, and there had to be more people here looking also for studio space. So that was kind of the beginning of the thrilling part for me, was this finding the building and then realizing that it could be much bigger than just the 5 of us.
And
Yeah, that
I was
building.
thinking of,
Go ahead, Jill.
I was looking into graduate school,
Mhm.
but I sort of got sidetracked. Well, I thought having a studio at the time would be great, and then I would go to graduate school. But as it turned out, I think our doing the clay studio was my graduate school, because there was really a lot to take on. And luckily, Ken had a lot of experience in building the kilns and things like that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, just dealing with all the things that we wanted to do. It was fun mostly. I think that there were moments when we were sweating.
Sweating about
the details, and and I made a comment in our test meeting the other day about building that big kill, and I sweated about that a little bit, but then we just stopped thinking about it and just went ahead and did it. And
did we get any zoning or anything? Did we do anything?
No, I don't remember. What's the statute of limitations on that?
I don't know.
Be careful. And one of the things that we also did and went ahead, and this just shows you like how my students hitched their wagon to a crazy person. I went ahead and put in a rock cook firing space in the basement. Luckily, it had a door separating it from the main part of the basement so that I could do Raku in there, or whoever else was doing it, and it wouldn't smoke out the people who had their studio spaces in the basement next to the big kill. It was
Yeah.
a really nice big hill, don't you think,
It was
guys?
wonderful. It was wonderful. You did a good job. Pegasus,
Oh, wow.
right?
That's what we called it. I forgot about that.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, I'm
What
writing that down. Pegasus. That was the name of the kiln. A big
Yeah.
gas
Yeah.
kiln.
The
Yeah.
big gas hill.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so so it sounds like it was an attempt to kind of recreate the college experience that must have been really nice there at Moore, for all of you, that you all enjoyed, and you wanted to kind of continue doing that. And then did you all feel like you had a distinct role once, you know, you got into the building and you were figuring out how to pay rent and take care of things? Was it a club that you had a president, or was it just natural that everybody kind of all hands on deck?
I kind of remember it happening a little bit organically. I think one of our first meetings, I don't know whether it was Betty, but somebody brought Robert's Rules of Orders in and said,
You're kidding.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, there's going to be clay coming next weekend. Who's going to be here to unload it? You know, who's going to empty the I mean, little things like that. We realized, wait, we got to run a building here.
And we had to get more people into it.
And yeah, and so when we got that first group of 12, I think that's when we realized, okay, you know, maybe we need someone to run a meeting. We need to take notes. We need to kind of, well, for me, I was just graduating from Moore, and I didn't feel fully qualified to be interviewing anybody to join us. So it was a thrill to kind of be part of that, where people from other colleges were coming in, people with other experiences were coming in, and we needed to sort of figure out what that group of 12 was going to look like.
How long did it take to get the 12? Was that right away when you walked in the door? Or was it a few months after you started, the 5 of you started? Or
The number that I remember is we had 18 people by the end of 3 months.
Right.
I remember
know.
18 also.
Yeah.
The end of 3
Anyhow,
months, really?
Oh. Pardon? At the end of 3 months, I think we had 18 people.
and who were some of those other people?
Oh, you know, when I think
Fry.
back in that period, I'm always like, did Glenda Fry come then? Or,
Yeah.
you know, like I can't remember when Glenda Fry came, but we had,
Ellen.
oh
Pye.
yeah.
Catherine Narrow.
Amy was in the original early on, wasn't she?
Yeah, I think she was.
Not the first year, I don't think, but anyhow, remember Ellen Pine? That was an early one.
Yes, Ellen Pine. Oh, and Kathy
Kathy
was Turner. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had Jim Coots in there somewhere too. That was a sad one.
Yeah. He was president of the clay studio for a while.
Right.
And Julie Pearson is waving her hand.
One of the fun things was the naming of it, of what we were going to call this.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me this morning. Wait a minute, I don't know how they called.
Somebody I know thought we should call it Stop and Pot.
Yeah.
I know who that person is that you know, Jill. He really was disappointed when we didn't take that.
He was.
Was that your husband,
Sheldon.
Sheldon?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
He was trying to get Ed Mundell to pressure us into that.
Oh,
That's a pretty strong. No. Okay.
He had connections.
but one of the important things was that Kathy and I both were married to lawyers, and we needed them
Right.
to help us become tax exempt and
That was a big part of it.
sort of make sure we were doing everything, you know, within the rules.
Right.
No.
That was really important to set us on a path so that the clay studio became what it became.
Right.
And you know, it opened up a lot of thinking for us that wasn't even close to, you know, being thought about.
Mm.
And you know, I want to say, Jill, that I do see the clay studio as replacing graduate school for you and everyone else who came there. And there were a lot of undergraduate people that came there, and they had the equivalent of a graduate school experience because my watching several graduate schools and having gone through it myself, what you're doing is you're paying money to be with a group of people who are doing collective thinking and reinforcing each other in terms of giving them ideas and, you know, moving their mind around in the medium. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
You know, the thing that it does now, that was so important then, it's that step after college of having other people gather together and all of you together make a place where you can continue working and then eventually go off on your own. I think that was.
The other thing is that the equipment is so expensive. It's not the kind of thing you're going to set up a studio easily on your own, particularly if you wanted to have a gas kiln.
Right.
And, you know, you couldn't really do it on your own. So that was hugely important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to reiterate that I had actually been thinking for a few years about the issue of students not having any place to go when they left school. And then when we made this movement towards the clay studio, after a short bit, I said, oh, we just solved this problem. That was something that was in my mind. And I think that institutions similar to the Clay Studio in other cities like Northern Clay Center and so forth probably came into existence for the same reason.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people just drop out after, you know, leaving art school.
yeah, because if you don't have equipment, and there is that communal spirit that you just miss when you leave.
Right.
I want to get back to the name, but I also want to talk about that idea of it being, so we'll do that in a minute, but that idea of it being like grad school. Can somebody kind of visually walk us through what it was like when you walked in the door? Maybe Kathy, what did it look like when you walked in the door and you walked up the stairs, or you just walked into a big studio space?
My recollection, and anybody correct me, my recollection is that when you walked in the door, you could go straight up the stairs to the second floor where the kitchen was. And then the other studios on the second floor, or you could turn left into the ground floor where the loading dock, and there were probably, I don't know, 8 or 6, I don't remember how many studio spaces on the first floor. So.
And is that where you all were, on the first floor?
Well, I think
Floor.
You were on the
people were spread out, you know.
Yeah.
My memory is that there were a bunch of people on the first floor, and then some people eventually were put down in the basement when the first floor space was divvied up. And I went and began living in the second floor, and I paid consequently like 1/3 of the rent because of the fact that we had 3 floors. And I don't remember how long I paid that, because then the second year that I stayed there, I only had half of the top floor. And that was very amusing to have that wall down the middle of that top floor. And I'd be trying to go to sleep, and there would be 4 or 5 people throwing pots on the other side of the wall. It was very, very humorous, and definitely represents the top end of my hippie lifestyle.
What was the rent? Does anybody remember?
I can't remember.
No idea.
You know, I worked.
But we talked the other day about the party that we had there in the spring. We got the building in the fall of '74, and then in the spring, we had NCECA in town, and I had that big party up there, and there was a great party, and I had put a swing in there, attached it to this concrete beam in the top. And during the party, Betty Parasano was swinging on there, and she was swinging really high because it was a long rope. And at the bottom of the arc, it came out of the wall, and she landed on her bum. And so that was a moment where everybody stopped during that party, but that was a good party. And,
Yeah.
and
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I wanted to ask about, did you all know that NCECA was coming when you started? Did that have any,
No.
did
I
you
don't
know
think
like,
so.
oh, we should get together because this is happening?
No.
It's not like it is now where everyone for 2 years beforehand is like all planning everything.
You know, it probably was known, but we didn't have enough bandwidth to think about that when we were trying to get started.
Got it. Oh, can your son just put a comment in the chat that he remembers the old layout really well because he explored it a lot? So maybe
he spent weekends with me, and I had a sandbox over in one corner. I put the swing in for him, and I had one corner with a carpet on the cruddy floor where a little bit of furniture and a sofa couch that, you know, he slept on, we slept on. Anyhow, it's very fond memories for me. And I think consequently, Carl, whenever he comes to town and he goes to the clay studio, has a little extra feeling in his thoughts than the normal visitor at the clay studio.
Yeah, that's so nice. Let's talk about the name again. So we know what you didn't want to name it. Was anyone remember why the clay studio became the name? Was
I
it?
think at the time there wasn't a lot of competition, so the idea, I think we maybe entertained the idea of using Potter or pottery in the name, but yeah, I don't know. Do you remember, Ken? I think it seemed like it was
No.
natural.
Did you call the clay studio at Moore the clay studio? Like, I'll meet you at the clay studio. Was it a
No.
name transfer?
No. At Moore, we'd say, we'll see you down at the ceramic studio, you know.
Yeah.
And, but I think the clay studio, I don't know, but my mind tells me that when we came up with that name, we moved straight towards a clear functional statement. And I think the functional side of our brain, which clay people have, whether they're doing functional pottery or not, it's just embedded in your mind. I think that the straightforwardness of it just really appealed to us.
I just saw Nancy Stock. She was there.
Oh, gosh.
Right.
Just saw her picture. I even have some of her pots still.
I think she put something in the chat. Yeah, she said, "I keep waving."
Oh, was that Nancy Scott? Okay.
That's everybody, so I don't know.
So okay, so the name, interesting. It just feels so specific to me. But I guess it just sort of came about. That's nice too. So we talked about the layout of the studio a tiny bit, but did you have it? I'm gonna guess the answer is no, but did you have regular kind of critiques or like meetings where you would get together and talk about your work, or like, tell me about how the points of connection happened to make it like that grad school experience?
The one thing that I remember is there were no walls between the spaces. You were right next to the person. And I was next to Martha Jackson, who did fantastic work. And it was sculptural. It was amazing. So we would talk together and discuss different things. But I think everyone was pretty much, you know, doing their own thing. I don't remember having crits, or you?
No, I think if it happened, it happened. I know we had fabulous lunches together.
That's for sure.
And I think we would, you know, what it was nice is there was a spontaneous, well, come over and look at this, look at what I'm doing, or that kind of thing. But it was very informal. We never sat down for a formal critique. Yeah, no.
And then we had we started having shows, didn't we? Or Christmas sales.
Yeah.
And that was an opportunity for people to sort of go back and forth and talk about what they had out.
Did that start right away, or was it like the next year after 74?
Probably the next year. What I remember is the next year, 73, 05, the PMA came through to the women.
Women's
People
committee.
from the women's committee came through this clay studio. So
Mm.
they knew we were there. I don't know how they knew we were there, but, and they came through as a promotional thing for their new idea, which was the Philadelphia Craft Show. So
Oh, wow.
So they were
I
trying to
remember-
encourage you all to participate in the craft show?
no, they wanted to, I don't think that was it. Well, I mean, maybe that was it to some extent, but it was more of, I mean, it was a photo op for them. They used it. There were pictures and
Oh.
they were all wearing black. And I just remember this vividly. And there was this incredible amount of dust. And Mary Lee Lowry was one name I remember. And I can't remember. They were names that were notable in the women's committee for years and years. But so they started afterwards, and we were the marketing tool, I think.
A marketing tool. Yeah, well, it was a good place to take pictures and be able to see what was going on. So yeah, the first year of the craft show was 76. And what was my next question? The lunches on the loading dock. So you said they were fabulous. Can you talk about
Fabulous.
that? Bill told me a little bit about them before, but why were they fabulous?
I remember, I mean, this was so long ago, but I still remember something Claire said, which I won't repeat.
Well, now
Oh, that was great. That line, that was a great one. I remember that too.
you're not
Where
going
is
to
she?
share it with
So
us?
we had memorable conversations.
Well, one thing she said was her hair was long and she was going to cut it short when she turned 30.
Right.
When she turned 30. Okay.
Mhm.
Claire's here somewhere. I don't see her now, but
She's
Yeah.
not in her, she's not sitting down, but
oh, I see. It's just a blink. She doesn't hear us talking about her. Okay. Did you all like bring your own lunches, or did you cook for each other in the kitchen, or?
we did
Some
a lot
people
of
came
takeout.
up and used the kitchen. It was very, very convenient. That was very nice. It also made my living there possible. You know, how would I do it without a kitchen? I guess I would have gone out all the time. And luckily there was a good bathroom facility too.
So this the lunches, just like spontaneous, wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
And it
We,
kind
Yeah.
we were out on the loading dock, so the loading dock went out from the building. I mean, it was, right? I mean, it extended beyond so we were over the sidewalk.
I
And
think
All right.
on a beautiful day, it was great, and we'd sit out there. I remember when that crab place opened up on Ray Street, whatever it was called, a famous one. And they,
Oh, there it is.
is that
Yeah.
it? Is that the loading dock?
That's the
there's a loading dock, right, right.
Who has that picture?
Janice just sent me this picture
bike.
this morning.
That's
Sorry
great.
about that.
That's my old bike. I don't know whose car that was. Maybe, does anyone know
Oh.
whose car that was?
So
Denardo's. Oh, yeah.
Bernardo's, that was it.
Yeah.
Because we'd be out there, and then the smell of crab would
Oh,
come.
that's
in.
great. Yeah.
Remember that? It was like a waste thing for their restaurant.
Oh,
It was
no.
awful.
Yeah, there's the loading dock on the left. And then on the right, that black hole there on the right is an alleyway where we had the gas tanks
Right,
for
right,
our
right.
bills. So it was amazing how the building really was perfect for us, being concrete. We didn't have to worry about burning it down. And someone asked a question up there. I just glanced at it. They wanted to know the address. It's on Oriana Street, right north of Church Street.
Between
Right north.
Race, between
109
Race,
Oriana.
Yeah, and the
Also-
building is still there. You guys didn't burn that one down.
No,
no,
9.
it was a fantastic building.
It was a fantastic building.
Is it like condos now or something? Probably.
It would
It
make
may
nice
be. It may be.
And
If-
this is the and whose studio? Is this your studio, Janice?
No, I don't think so.
I know.
I think maybe that's a shot from, yeah, no, I don't know. Actually, that
I
looks
think
like,
that's the first floor though.
that's definitely the first floor.
Yeah, those windows. You can
I was
see
on the
the
first
louver
floor.
window. Oh, I guess they were on the second floor too.
And the
Yeah.
other thing is, all of us sort of built our shelves, used old doors for our tables. You could see how kind of in today's quality, it's sort of ticky-tacky looking, but you know, we just made do with whatever we could find.
On the street.
So we have a couple more pictures to look at, but does anyone want to share whatever their fondest memory was of those first few years?
I definitely have I have several fond memories, but one of the really lucky things is Kirk Mangus and Eva Kwong came to Philadelphia. She was going to graduate school at Tyler. So Kirk joined the clay studio, and he sat down and he was throwing pots. And he loaded probably half of the big kiln because he was able to just sit there and throw pots and throw pots. And then they would fire it up. And when they unloaded, Mary's space, my wife Mary, had her space in the basement. She was right next to the kiln. So she was there when Kirk would unload, and she would go, oh, ooh, ooh, ah, and Kirk would sell her a plate for a couple bucks. And Mary had no money, but she would scrape up $2 and she bought plates, and we are still using those Kirk Mangus plates. And it's just a pleasure getting them out of the kitchen cabinet.
That's so great. That's a good one. I love that. Thank you, Ken.
One of the nice things that happened for me was I met Susan Beckman, who was also a grad student at Tyler. And we're still really good friends. She lives in LA, but we went through a lot together.
Yeah. She was in Venice. Is she not in Venice anymore?
She's in Venice.
Yeah, okay.
What did I say, LA? She's in California, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Venice
she's
is outside of LA.
also a ceramic artist?
No, she was really talented, made incredible work. She was in Helen's gallery. But once she got out to California, she stopped.
Did she go to more too? Or?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Was there kind of
she went to Tyler for graduate school, and I don't know where she was before that.
Was there any sense of like where people, was there a pipeline right from Moore, or was it just everybody from all over, Tyler, Moore, PCA, everybody came to the clay studio? Like, was there one school that was represented?
I think it was a lot of other people, not just from the local art school.
Oh, other people at the clay studio.
No, I mean even from other cities.
So even that early, they were just coming because they knew that they could get a studio there, or
they would apply, and get in. And
all right. Well, we do fondest memories for Janice and Kathy, and then we're getting back to that apply question. Janice and Kathy, any fond memories?
A lot of fond memories. I can't even begin. I don't know, lunch on the dock, and I personally was so excited about being involved in the beginning of something. It's sort of like I love being part of a group and starting something. I remember I'd worked in a bank, so I did some treasury stuff, and I wrote some grants, I think back in the beginning, and you're kind of doing, I don't know, all sorts of things. And it was my life for those early years on Oriana Street. I really was spending most of my time there. And it was just exciting to be part of something that was starting, not having a sense of where it was going though.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And Janice?
I think for me, just getting to meet a whole big community of people. I mean, as I was, other than just my classmates, and realizing that I could build sort of a support system for myself. And look, 46 years later, and we're still friends, and these longtime friendships just mean so much. So
I agree.
I think it's something that exists in my experience here in Philadelphia, these long-term sort of artists, you have the feeling that you can start something. It doesn't feel so overwhelming, like, oh my gosh, we can't do that. that institution doesn't exist. People here are like, all right, well, let's just make that. And I feel like that spirit was very strong in the 70s, and it's still strong now. We have all these artist collectives run galleries, and it's really empowering to be part of a community like that. So that's great.
How do you, Jennifer, do you know about other cities of places that have, I don't know, started? I mean, does anything come to mind in other urban settings where this kind of thing has started?
Well, there's the Northern Clay Center in Minneapolis. There's Clay Arts in Port Chester, New York. That's not terribly urban. There's a few others in cities and smaller
there's one in
places
LA.
that have other things besides clay. There's a bunch of things in Brooklyn lately. But I think in terms of how long the Clay Studio has lasted and how it really just came together from friends deciding to
Garth is putting in a bunch of things there. He said the Baltimore Clay Works started in 1980. So that's another big one. Yeah.
Absolutely. I just think that there's, I'm teaching this craft history course online for the Clay Studio too. And I always make a connection between the early arts and crafts movement of the 1850s and the Clay Studio. Because the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood and William Morris, those guys were just graduated from college and we're like, what do we do now? I don't know, get together and decorate a house. It's just a great, it's a craft story too, not just a Philadelphia story. I mean, not that other fields don't do these things, but there's a sense of community and valuing a communal spirit that I think is really lovely. I feel very privileged to be part of the Clay Studio. So thank you to all of you for starting it. We don't have too much more time. I do want to just touch on that idea of application, because I don't know a lot about the technical aspects of how things were set up during these early times. So you had that the first 3 months there were 18 people. Did they have to apply and you had to decide whether they were allowed to come in, or at that point you just needed people to share their rent? And then you decided when was the decision made to start an application process?
I think when we had more applicants than we had spaces. I mean, if we had spaces to fill and somebody came, they could join if they wanted to help pay. That would be my sense of it. Yeah. And then there came a time when people wanted to come in and we didn't have the space. And so
was it everybody who already had a space got a vote, or you had a committee of people who were making the decisions?
I remember sitting around the table. Catherine Nero was applying, I think, at the time or something, or she came in and was standing at the end of the table and we were sort of all talking about it. And she was sort of baffled, amazed that this place existed, seemed to be happy to be part of it, or wanted to join. I don't remember, but I think there was no sense of a committee, that everybody just sort of kind of like, did they like the person? I don't know. Somebody else have any thoughts on that?
It wasn't very formal.
It wasn't very formal. I think there was a bit of an interview process, but it was more like just getting a feel for this person. And
one thing I just wanted to say quickly about this, when you had all these new people came in, it got to be 18 people or whatever. I remember feeling very, maybe because I was married to a lawyer, or the sense that it was really informal and nothing was written down about ways to do things. And as we got going, there needed to be more and more rules. And because not everybody would carry their weight or whatever. I just remember thinking, this is how government starts. You need to have rules to make this group work. And you can't assume that people are going to clean the kiln shelves. You have to make sure that they know that they have to clean. I don't know. I saw you nodding.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an organic development of civilization.
Exactly.
It looks like both Liz and Nancy Judy remember being interviewed, and Nancy said something about showing slides. So, I think we did look at slides.
Do you think that was for the next building, or was it?
Oh, that's a good point. That may have been the second location.
The second building. We were only in this fabulous place for 5 years, and then they wanted to sell it, and so we had to move.
Oh, that's why it happened. They wanted to sell it. So you moved into the one on 2nd Street.
No, in the Front Street.
On Front Street, right, well.
No, I'm sorry, in Arch Street, Arch Street,
Rosenfeld's Gallery. where
Arch Street.
Gallery
Yeah,
was.
across from Rosenfeld.
Something like 142 or.
Oh, I thought, and then Second Street was after that?
Yeah,
First
Second
one
Street
on
was
Second
after
Street,
that.
And then the second one on Second Street.
And then the second one on Second
Oh,
Street,
right.
right.
Oh, I knew that. Yeah. Okay.
Which is a good name, Second on Second.
That's true. Okay, so I'm just gonna show people a couple more of those little pictures, and then I'll look through the questions in the chat, but if anybody has a question, you're welcome to just unmute yourself and ask the question or make a comment. And we are gonna be saving the chat, so if you do, I see people are putting really good information in there. Please do feel like you're gonna be heard, even if we don't talk about it today. That's gonna be part of the record of this conversation, so great.
I'm going to speak up, just jump in here to not ask a question, but to share.
Ooh, say who you are. Is it Lisa?
Oh, sorry, it's Lisa. Yeah. So yeah, Lisa Naples. So I just want to say thank you to all of you founders from the bottom of my heart, because the support that has come my way by virtue of the Clay Studio existing is profound. And yeah, it's hard to imagine a world without it, you know? And I've also started organizations, and to have it go on and go on, it's not just it's the merit of the founders, but it's the merit of everybody who came along the whole way. You know, there had to be people willing to have a certain attitude in order for it to continue. And I just feel so grateful to be part of that legacy, that history, and the recipient of so much generosity from the Clay Studio. So thank you.
Good to see you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa. And Lisa is a former resident artist, and her solo exhibition is coming up this fall in starting in October. So everyone should.
Looks like she's making pots right in front of us too.
Yeah, I love that you're just making pots while we're talking.
Gotta make a living.
Thank you, Lisa. Do you all want to say who else is in this photo? I see Janice and Kathy, I think. I don't know.
Judy Axelrod.
Isn't that Judy in the corner? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's Pandy Bevins. That's Pandy Bevins.
Evans.
Oh, yes.
Amy Sarner all the way on the left.
Yes,
Right.
that's
And Liz Daly next to her.
Janice is holding court, it looks like.
Yeah. And then
How come there's no guys in that picture?
yeah.
Just troublemaker, that's all.
ask my colleague Raymond and my colleague Drew. There's 17 of us and only 2 men. Anyway, this is a great one. So this is the studio space, right? And this is this the first building?
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yeah,
so.
but
Yeah, I think so.
Based on your shirts, I'm thinking this is more like 1980, but maybe I'm wrong.
I always wore that.
No, okay. And then you guys were talking about the test tiles behind you.
Yeah.
So
These, I think we had a photographer coming in, or we were using these as some sort of publicity shots, because
yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
not a snapshot. It's very well lit.
these are totally posed.
And then this one's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's Shirley Tyshawn.
And that's a cool box. So you're sort of doing a crit with her. Was it a class that you were teaching, Janice, or you just
Yeah, she's a student.
stop that share? And then I wanted to show everyone the oh, wait 1 second. I can't. Okay. Why isn't it coming up? Hold on. Sorry. I do know how to use this, but sometimes you don't have the right thing up. Okay. Now this is the 4th building. This is the current building. But there's some images here.
That
This
was
is
the second building there in the middle, right?
This is Arch Street,
No,
No,
that's Second
No,
Street.
that's Second and Cuthbert.
Street.
2nd and Cuthbert. Okay. 2nd and Cuthbert. Yeah, and that's a store now. And then for some reason we have tons of photos of the burnt out building.
Oh, gosh.
Tons of them. Dominique, let's put these pictures up on here. And I think there's Lisa Naples. And
Sibylla, Fran
Sandy
Scott,
O'Neill,
Sandy.
Sibylla. Oh, that's Sibylla.
and Fran Scott up at the top there,
Oh, okay.
above Sibylla.
Sandy Paratosi.
And George Perlman up there.
David Wright, is that David Wright? Who's that over
Yep,
on the left?
David Wright.
Who's
And-
that?
That's Andy Clef.
Oh, okay. And then this gallery, is this the gallery in this building? Second and Cuthbert? That's
Yeah.
not our current building, is it?
Looks like it
yeah.
might.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our current building.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Raymond.
It is?
And then there's Ken and Jimmy Clark. 20th anniversary. Some other great stuff that Dominique found in the archive. And this is illustrating why we need to digitize the whole archive, because this is just cherry-picked stuff.
I love that shot of the building advertising the 20th anniversary of the Clay Studio.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
That's the Pico building.
And then
Yeah.
and then the Pico building showing the
Yeah.
letters. That's
That's
amazing.
great.
Grand opening party. And this is last year's creative collective, so work that was on view over at the American Craft Council. We don't have everyone officially photographed, but thank you to Naima for that. Yeah, okay. So anybody, let's see, let's look in the chat and see. Dominique wants to know, was there a studio tech in the beginning?
No.
Actually, was somebody hired?
I was one of them.
Yeah.
Kinda. But everybody chipped in the beginning, but eventually, you know, it became too much and it had to be a position. And, you know, when we were all trying to get things done, we would have loved to have the staff that you have now, but we didn't. We had to all pitch in.
We do have an amazing staff.
And we would have loved to have had them, like, you know, shaped up the way Jennifer Martin has shaped you guys up also.
She's a great
We
leader.
We weren't able to shape each other up at all.
Well, you did okay.
We got by.
So did the rent eventually then include the amount of money it would cost to hire the studio tech?
We never had one, did we?
Oh, you didn't have one.
You know, I didn't stay with the Clay Studio for a long time because I was looking to, you know, get my own place and my own studio together. And so consequently, a lot of the evolution took place after I left, I think. I lived in the Clay Studio for 2 years, and I kept my working studio there for another year or two, and then I was gone. But I was on the board and so forth, in different things off and on.
I think if we got somebody to help us do anything or like tech work or something, I think my guess is that it would have been in exchange for rent or something.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think I'll ask one more question and then leave the final thing will be sort of thinking about our future. But so just another technical question is, do you remember a moment when the resident artist program started the way we think about it now? Or I have the sense that it didn't really evolve into what it is now until like the late 80s. So
Yeah, I think you're right.
was it just that everybody was equal? You know, you were just a member of, did you call each other members of the Clay Studio, or did you say the word resident? How did that language?
No, members. I think that was during Jimmy's reign would be my guess. It didn't start until at the end. It was up to then. People could have stayed forever.
You know, it was coincidental. It correlates with going to the building you're in now. I just happen to know because I was part of the group of first residents there. So it correlates to a new physical structure and different floors. And maybe that's why it was born.
So Lisa, does that mean that your class was the first class of official residents?
Yeah, I think so.
So nobody was called a resident before that?
We weren't in that building. They were moving. I remember Jimmy Clark. I had gotten out of graduate school. I was living in South Philly, and purposely living alone and working alone for a period of years so I could see if I had it on my own without having all these great people around me. And he appealed to me to join the clay studio when they were in the building just prior to this building that you're in. And it was right before they were about to move. And I thought, no, you're not going to rope me into moving boxes over there. I'm going to wait. So maybe I wasn't part of the very first, or maybe they had a couple extra spaces, and that was part of how, you know, Sandy, that picture you saw in front of the kiln was with Sandy Parentozzi and George Perlman and all those guys. That's who I was there with. So it was an early year. But I think that the correlation to the new building had something to do with this new nomenclature.
Yeah.
Liz Daly said that in exchange for doing tech work, you could,
Studio.
instead of paying rent, you could do work at the studio.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Helen asks, when did the Clay Studio branch out to organize national and international exhibitions beyond just local and regional? Now, if I would be answering that, I would say the Eastern European show that Jimmy did. Does anyone remember international and maybe national stuff before that?
Well, we had the American Clay Artist Show
Oh.
down
Helen.
at the what's now the Seaport Museum, I think.
Port of History.
1982.
That was the Port of History Museum, and that was still Jimmy Clark's time.
Yeah, the Port of History Museum.
That was a good show.
Did Helen curate that show? Helen, did you curate that show, or was it Jimmy?
I think Jimmy did. I remember Paul Sollner was there, and I remember getting an award, and I think it was through Paul Sollner.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
He juried it with Jimmy, with whoever.
I should probably know this, but there is
Jimmy, according to Liz.
Okay. There's a great we do another plug for why we need our archives catalog. We have I'm going to share my screen again because we have this exhibition online and we have the catalog. So one of our interns last year was able to scan all the objects and put them in. So that's the images from the catalog of American Clay Artists in '83. And there's a great, I'm getting confused. Is this the one that has the great, yeah, Helen wrote the foreword. So that essay is really lovely. And we have a copy of it at the Clay Studio. If anyone wants a photocopy, I'll happily send it along. There's a few of our older exhibitions that we have ephemera for and that we've managed to pull out of the archive and digitize. It's on the website, but our hope is to have everything that is part of that lineage of the exhibition program, et cetera, available for people to see on the website.
All of the things that you've been telling us.
Thanks, Dominic.
All the things that you've been telling us about your intentions and what you've done already is just absolutely terrific. You know, I just the number of people that are tuning in today is a hint of like how important the Clay Studio has been to not just Philadelphia, but to the country as a whole, spread out there.
Yeah, I feel really strongly that it is such an important organization to the whole field of not just American ceramics and craft, but international. And that kind of goes right. Thank you, Ken, for segueing us into my last question, which is just leave us with your kind of hope for the future. I know most of you told me that when you started it, you didn't imagine that this would evolve into the organization we've become. So now that you see what we are and you're all still involved, is there just one thing that you're hoping or looking forward to that we can leave people with?
Now, I guess the one thing that hasn't been mentioned that I think is like a really important part of the Clay Studios program is the connection to the kids. I mean, that, like, to me, really is just extra heartwarming. And there's so many adults that have been given access to clay as a wonderful experience, and the kids are getting it sooner. And both the kids and the adults that experience that wouldn't have that without the clay studio. And I think that's something that needs to be mentioned. And I think the facilities that are designed are they're slanted towards making sure that that continues, you know, at a kind of a really high level and a generous portion level also.
Yeah, and we'll just say that Catherine Narrow founded the Claymobile program that focuses on school children and going out to get the clay to them in the early 90s. So we have her to thank for that. And then all of our amazing teachers and administrators who have led that program to now we serve almost 4,000 students every year through that program.
I think the Clay Studio continuing to be a welcoming place. I know when I was teaching, I gave an assignment that my students had to visit the Clay Studio and write about something that they saw. And so many students would say, "You mean I can just walk in and it's free?" They really didn't get that. And then invariably they'd come back and they'd say, "Wow, I met an artist and they showed me their work and people took me around and it was so much fun and it was they felt comfortable." So I think that continuing atmosphere is really special.
We often, I think, we've started to really proudly say we're a place where you can see high quality exhibitions, and our shop is so amazing for free. It's one of the only places in Philadelphia that you can walk in and see art for free. I mean, along with the Center for Art and Wood and some other places, but yeah, you don't have to pay. You don't have to do anything. You can just walk right in. So I thank you, Janice. I appreciate that. Kathy and Jill, any thoughts?
Well, looking forward to the new building. I think it's it'll be wonderful for everyone, for the people who come there, the people who are working there. It's the next step, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and thank you. And we are so honored that we've had so many amazing people be so generous in order to make that happen. And the fact that our community has come together and helped us raise over $6 million is incredible. And what a testament to what all of you started and what we are working towards every day. So thank you to all of you. Janice, any?
We're in such good hands. You're such capable leadership. The future is really bright. And, to be honest, in the situation as it is now, we don't know what education is going to look like. It's clear that the Clay Studio and the creative place for the community to rally around is going to be more important than ever.
Yeah.
Feels like a place to heal. The community needs places to heal. And Clay is a great healer.
Thank you.
I just wanted to go back and ditto Ken's remark about the kids. I've always felt that children often, they feel when they're young. I mean, they feel so easily intimidated about art, and they can't do it, and also that they're no good at school. They're struggling. But when they go and they try and they touch clay, it makes a huge difference. And often people feel that you hear kids say, they didn't think they were seen before that time. And I think the Clay Studio's emphasis on that, and then going into this neighborhood, which is a particularly important institution to be there to help with the population and the kids. There's so many kids up there. It's going to be empowering them in a way that, just to know that there are a lot of avenues. It doesn't have to be, Harvard University or whatever. I don't know. Just
thank you.
Yeah, the Clay Studio does a wonderful job.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, we couldn't do it without all of you still supporting us. And to Janice's point that we don't know what education is going to look like, we have pivoted a bit, and I think that that's my word of April. So I have one more day to use the word pivot, and then I have to stop. I'm going to say adapt next month. We have virtual classes available. If you look in our classes section, there are 2 more adult classes that have spaces open that you can sign up for, and that is what it looks like is interactive time with a teacher and much smaller classes. I think it's 6 people, and so you get really a nice sense of being part of the community, which is an important part of our classes, and getting that one-on-one with the teacher. So that's great. We have some youth classes that are online now as well, workshops ages 6 to 12. So go check those out. We have my craft history class, which has already started, but if you want to join, you can always just watch the first lecture, and I think I'll probably be doing that in the future.
I couldn't figure out where to find that, Jennifer. I was looking for it.
So if you look in the, it's a little tricky. If you look in the classes section and just scroll down through instructors to my name, it'll pop up, but I can
I see.
send that as well.
That's off your website. Okay.
It's on the website. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Under classes.
Okay.
And the kids ones, I think, are under classes and then workshops. We're having a virtual First Friday tomorrow. So it's the first time trying to figure out how to take that spirit of First Friday that the Clay Studio helped to found about 30 years ago, one of the first Old City First Friday galleries. And now we're one of the first to move on. So Craft Now Philadelphia is hosting that. It'll be the Clay Studio, the Philadelphia Museum of Art, Center for Art and Wood, and the Esherick Museum. And then next Thursday, we're going to be talking to Roberto Lugo on our Lunch and Learn, along with Elizabeth Agro and Jack Hinton from the Art Museum, to talk about the installation of Rob's piece with the Udon, both Benjamin Franklin representations. And to Kathy's point, if you've heard Rob Lugo speak, you know that he often says that when he touched clay in his community college, it was the teacher of that class was his first teacher who ever told him he had done a good job.
Wow.
And he grew up in Kensington, which is where our new building is going to be. So it all kind of comes together in the end. And I'd love to add and end on a note that's super positive. So I'm so grateful to all of you for spending this time. I'm sorry to tell you that you're not done, because I have to do more specific interviews with each of you, but hopefully we'll make it fun. And those of you out there in my little tile world that I'll be getting in touch with to further those interviews and our programming into the future, we are so excited to have all of you coming with us and supporting us and just being present and positive. It's really makes, again, I just feel so grateful every day. So
I think we feel really, really grateful to you guys. I mean, you have been unbelievable. And the staff has just been exceptional, and the energy and the creativity is fabulous, and how you've weathered this problematic time. And you've all done such a wonderful job. I really thank you.
can I put Jen Martin on the spot to unmute herself and maybe say one thing
Sure.
before we end?
Where is she?
She's looking at me. I don't know. There she goes.
She's got a little better than the other day. Yeah.
Thanks, Kathy. I guess this is just like a reaffirmation of how, grateful and blessed I am to be a part of such an amazing community. And, I feel really honored to be in the position that I'm in, and I couldn't do it without the amazing staff and all of you guys who are continuing to support, who show up for these Zoom meetings, who, open your pocketbooks, open your hearts, and, are just always there. And it's been the same, with this COVID-19, it's just, again, we'll use the word pivot. Everyone says, okay, we're going to just pivot and keep going. And I think that's sort of the story and the legacy of the Clay Studio. No matter what obstacle has come up, you just kind of pivot and keep going. So thank you all for that.
Thanks, Jen. Okay, so I'm just going to say to everyone, thank you for coming. If you have to jump off, we'll see you later. We can just hang around for 2 or 3 more minutes if anyone wants to say hi and unmute yourself and chat for a minute, because that's always kind of fun. So
Thank you.
Everyone else?
Thank you very much.
See you
Yeah.
later. Thanks, everyone.
I would just like to talk
Lovely.
about how I got into the clay studio. Janice Marandino was going to Spain for the summer,
Oh.
and you sublet your space to me.
Oh, that's right.
And then I met Amy Sarner because she announced to me that if I wanted to work there, I could use a broom and sweeping compound. So that was Oriana Street. And then I became.
Uh-oh, we lost your audio.
I guess I was muted. I don't know what happened.
I don't know. It's just the signal went out. It's the storm coming through, I think.
Okay, but anyway, so that was great. And then Judy and I interviewed in the second iteration of the clay studio, and it was informal and it was wonderful. And we were there for a couple of years, and it was great, amazing, and we're still friends. So
That's what's important. That's what means that it was a good place. Everyone's still friends. Still have.
anyone else?
Oh, there's. Hi, Bob. I see Bob Winokur. I didn't see you before. All right. Well,
Maybe
it's
on mute.
always, when it's fun and that it's happening, it's always a little bit sad when it's over, but it was nice to be with all of you, and I guess I will end the meeting. And of course, if we ever want to come back and check it out, we'll have this posted on our website. And if anyone else missed it, you can always point them to the website. Okay? Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great day. Bye.